Hey, and thanks for listening to Between Shoots, a photography podcast for busy people who are also photographers. You might be asking why someone would start a photography podcast. Aren't there enough of those? I think so. But I'm just going to be honest. I need a creative outlet, but there's more to it, and I can explain. If I could, I'd only talk about photography when someone asks because I really enjoy teaching and mentoring. I would rather be out in the field on assignment or maybe working on a passion project or a book. But like most of you, I'm busy. I've also done my market research, and I can't find a photography podcast focused on sustainability and mental health in the creative field. Everyone talks about the business aspect and how to create value or which gear you should buy. And there's a real lack of emphasis on ways to safeguard your creativity. And I've seen too many photographers fall in love with the craft only to monetize it too quickly, overwork themselves, and arrive at a point in which they no longer want to pick up their camera. What I want is for you and anyone who listens to this podcast to never lose that creative spark. I want all of us, years from now, to still be full of creative energy and direction. And I think I, along with my friends, can help with that. But first, a brief intro for those of you who don't know me. My name is Joe Morgan, and for the last 13 years, I've been obsessed with photography. I'm married. I have 3 young kiddos. I'm a photographer and videographer at Boise State University and work as a military photojournalist for the Idaho Air National Guard. So photography is my full-time job, but it doesn't always scratch the itch, if that makes sense. I'm always shooting for someone else. I go on infrequent walks with my dad. I freelance from time to time to fund my photography obsession. I take pictures of my kids when they cooperate. And my wife is more than accommodating when I have a quarterly, sometimes monthly breakdown and just need to go shoot something. When I don't have time for photography, I work on my website. I window shop at B&H. I watch photography YouTube tutorials. I've even attempted to start my own YouTube channel, which was short-lived. I'm always looking for ways to express my creativity. And what I've found is during my daily 2-hour commute, listening to other people talk about all aspects of photography scratches that itch. But I find myself wanting to contribute to the conversation, and I've grown exceedingly curious of photographers around me from who I routinely draw inspiration. I think most of us photographers, whether full-time or hobbyist, we get bogged down in between shoots in the BS of life. We get busy. We only find time to shoot for money. We forget about passion projects. We compare our creativity to others. We tell ourselves, we can't go shoot unless we have this lens or that camera accessory, or maybe we struggle with feeling uninspired. So if you find yourself in the same boat creatively, I'm going to do everything I can to bring some amazing, insightful photographers to this podcast. And you're, of course, invited to be a part of that conversation. Send us your questions, and we'll try to spend some part of every episode reading the mail. Maybe your idea becomes an episode. Maybe you wind up on the podcast with us. That'd be fantastic. You can find a link for the podcast in the description. Please follow along. Let's scratch that creative itch together, as weird as that sounds. But first, I wanted to give you something to mull over for this first podcast, something I've been thinking about a lot as I've been prepping for this. Influence. But I don't want to talk about influence in the context with which we're all accustomed to talking about it or hearing about it. I want to know who is influencing you as a photographer. And I don't mean those giving advice on what to buy or how to make money or grow your business as a photographer. I mean, who makes you want to go pick up your camera and shoot? When you go somewhere to take photos, whether for business or pleasure, which photographers or artists do you turn to for inspiration? I've mentored several photographers over the years, and as I reflect on those opportunities, I'm realizing this is something that almost always gets left out of the conversation, or at the very least, it's an afterthought. The painter Picasso famously said, or at least the quote is attributed to him saying, "Great artists steal." But stealing isn't the goal here. I never go into any kind of shoot without a vision. And that vision is usually influenced by one of my favorite photographers, depending on the assignment. Before every shoot, I'm usually on Instagram consulting my favorite photographers in a given genre. I'm asking, how have those who have gone before me done this? How did they do it well? How can I learn from how they did it? I don't think a lot of folks are doing this enough. I mean, it's common to hop onto Pinterest before a portrait session and look up poses. What's less common is hopping on Instagram or buying a photography book from a photojournalist or a landscape photographer, and then looking at either of those things prior to going on a shoot. But why is this important? This is important because if you're constantly taking your camera out into the world without a reliable source of inspiration, fully reliant on your own creativity, you're liable to burn out or feel like an imposter or get bored or etc. Maybe this isn't everyone, but I think this is a majority of us as photographers. In fact, every photographer I've ever followed talks about the photographers who've influenced them. Drawing inspiration from others in the field is just part of the process. And over time, you move from emulating what they do to incorporating it into your style, as nebulous of a term as that is. You might even begin to blend influences. Artists have done this for centuries. Your favorite band was influenced by their favorite collection of bands. So let's lean into influence. Tell me who your favorite photographers are. Where do you go for inspiration when your creative tank is empty or you for a particular assignment? I'll go first, and with any luck, one of these amazing people will sit down and talk about photography with us someday. For photojournalism, I follow Associated Press photographer Julia Nickinson and New York Times photographer Kenny Holston, who also happens to be a former military photojournalist. Their images do a lot more than simply tell the story. They make you feel it. For sports photography, I follow Donald Morale. I'm almost definitely mispronouncing his name. He's an outstanding photographer for Ironman. And I also follow former Boise State photographer Tyler McFarland, who I believe last season was interning as an assistant photographer with the Kansas City Chiefs. For portrait photography, I look to my own headshot photographer, Jasmine Handy over at Van Marie Portraits. I don't currently do any kind of studio portraiture, but I'd love to start, and I know who to consult. For natural light, lifestyle portraiture, I love Jessica Demmer's work. Again, another name I'm probably mispronouncing. For as oversaturated as that world is, she stands out, and it's not in her edit as much as it's in the genuine emotion she captures and her framing. For product or brand photography, we've got a fantastic studio here in town in Vision Kit. Definitely follow those guys if you're looking for something routinely fresh. And those are just a few. If you're looking for inspiration, I can't recommend them enough. One last thought, third spaces. I was talking with my therapist this past week, and he mentioned third spaces. I never heard of that term before. We've got home and we've got work. Those are spaces 1 and 2. But this third space is somewhere we are completely ourselves. We're not defined by pre-existing engagements, and I think we need this. Along with that, I'm reading a book at his request that talks about the collapse of these spaces and why that collapse is significant. The book's called Bowling Alone by Robert Putnam. It's a long book. It's going to take me a week or two commuting to work to get through it. But that's what I want this place to be, this podcast, a third space option for us to get together and talk about photography. I think part of sustaining our love for the arts involves letting others in and finding community. And I think by finding a third space, a community where we can talk about our experiences, we can move from one shoot to the next and still love what we do. Want to support the show? Subscribe. Follow along on your podcast platform of choice. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Soundcloud. Maybe we create a Patreon in the future when we're feeling a bit more businessy. You can catch audio snippets of each episode and scarf down nuggets of wisdom over on Between Shoots Pod on Instagram. That's at Between Shoots Pod. Tell your creative friends about us. Give us a shout on socials. Let's talk about photography with a focus on community and creative sustainability. And in the spirit of sustainability, we want to be a resource for you when you're feeling burnt out or feeling like an imposter. We're not asking for more than you're willing to pitch in. There's no Discord channel. There's no call to action outside of tuning in every 2 weeks if you feel so inclined. Long term, it'd be a dream to see the podcast reach an audience large enough to make an impact on the larger creative community and collective mental health. and really pulling for Headspace sponsorship. So we'll see. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks for our first podcast with an actual guest. My good friend and exceptional photographer, John, will be helping me kick things off, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm joe.nef on Instagram. The music is provided by J. William Miller. You can find him on Instagram at TheRealJMiller. You can find more of him wherever you get your music. And thanks for listening.
Try and hold on to the past. It will fade as you go home. Try